Welcome to the beautiful Lake District. My name is Colin Hill from Ullswater Swim Place, and this video is going to take you through what to expect and what to do when you come swimming in this glorious playground for open water swimmers. Now, the Lake District is situated in the northwest of England, and there are 16 large bodies of water, lakes, although technically there's only one lake in the Lake District, that's Bassenthwaite. The others are meres and waters, the largest of which being Windermere, which is 10.5 miles long. There are also over 200 small tarns. Now, tarn is an Old Norse word for small pool, although some of these are actually bigger than lakes, so it gets complicated. It's kind of a grey area. But as well as the large lakes that we have, there's over 200 of these small pools around, which is just incredible, as well as a multitude of rivers where you can go dipping and little waterfalls you can swim under. So let's go through the basics. When you arrive in the Lake District and you want to come and swim in one of these beautiful lakes, you got to be aware of a few things. One is access. Now, it's going to be a really busy season. This video has been taken just as lockdown is starting to ease, and we're kind of braced here for it to be incredibly busy on the roads. So when you do come for an open water swim, the best time to come is early in the morning. You can literally have most of the lakes to yourself until about 9:30, 10 o'clock. And that goes for car parking as well. Some people arrive, midday on a busy weekend, and they're quite surprised that they can't park the car anywhere. If you arrive at a car park nice and early, you'll have no problem at all. Please, if the car park is full, don't abandon your car on these small country lanes, which sadly we saw a lot of people doing after the last lockdown eased. The roads simply can't handle it, and traffic gets backed up, and sometimes you can't even get through. So do find one of the car parks, and as I said, nice and early if you want to go swimming in one of these larger lakes. Why else should you swim early in the lakes? When you're talking about the larger ones, Windermere, Derwentwater, Ullswater, Coniston Water, these all have commercial steamer boats, ferries, which go up and down the lake during the day. They tend to start around about 9:30, you get the first ones coming down. And you also have private hire boats, motorized boats. People can launch boats themselves, and there's a speed limit on the lakes, which is 10 miles an hour, although some people who come to the Lake District don't realize that, and they go a bit too fast. So you've got private boats on the water. You've also got sailing clubs, and sailing clubs will have competitions going on over the weekends. Now, you don't want to be the person who's trying to swim across the lake while there's a sailing race going on. It's just not fair for other water users. You've got to be respectful of what else is going on in the lake. During the day, if you do have to swim later on in the day, then I recommend you swim along the shoreline. Don't go out into the main body of water if you can help it. Swim along the shoreline and you'll be fine there. But do be aware of other boat users. When you're accessing the lakes themselves, there are some private property around all the lakes. So you can't just climb over fences and get in anywhere. You want to access the water from public access points. When you get up to the sort of smaller tarns and higher tarns, it's often a bit easier. There are some places you can't swim. You can't swim in the reservoirs. Thirlmere and Haweswater being two examples. But otherwise, it's a paradise. It's open access. You can swim pretty much anywhere you want to apart from those reservoirs. Of course, you have to use your common sense when you go swimming. Now, again, in these larger lakes, you have to be responsible as a swimmer. You don't want to be a ninja swimmer, as I call them. Now, ninja swimmers are people who wear black wetsuits, black swim hats, maybe even black gloves and boots. And when they go swimming out in the water, other boat users just can't see you. And it's not fair on them if they end up running into you. So please be a responsible swimmer, especially on these larger bodies of water where there are other boat users. You should wear a bright coloured swim hat. And ideally wear a tow float, one of those bright things which bobs behind you. As I said, this isn't just about your own safety so you can hold on to them if you need a rest, But as I said, it's about being visual so that other boats can see you in plenty of time, because a lot of boat users are worried they're eventually going to hit a swimmer. So just to recap that, when you come to the lakes, come nice and early if you can to get a nice parking space. Try and get in the lake nice and early, especially these larger ones, and you'll have the lake to yourself. It's nice and quiet. Be visible when you're on the water, and make sure you access the water from the proper sort of places, from public access points, which is, to be fair, is most of the way around a lot of the lakes. But just look out for any signage that you may see. Now, when you come to the water itself, you may be wondering about water quality. Generally, the water quality in the Lake District is great. I take water tests, for example, in Ullswater, where I'm based. Sometimes you can get something called blue-green algae. Now that is where you get a green paint-like surface on the water. The first thing with that, if you see visually you see this green stuff, or froth as well, green and then froth, that means that the algae is fermenting and it's really bloomed and come up to the surface. It's pretty much common sense, you know, you don't want to swim if the water looks or smells dodgy. That goes wherever you are. So that's your own risk assessment. When you go down to the water, you have a look and see what the water looks like. There may be some warning signs saying warning algae, although they can stay up the whole season even when the algae is gone. So I go and look at the water. If it's clear, pretty much fine as far as I'm concerned. If there is that green paint on the water, then make sure that your pets, you know, if you've got a dog with you, they don't drink the water. It can be really dangerous if you drink that sort of fermented bloom of algae. But algae is a naturally occurring thing in all bodies of water, but it can be triggered by the warm weather quite often. So just look out for that and just avoid it. The other thing is, after it's been raining a lot, and it does rain a lot in the Lake District, if you get any big storms and the lakes are sort of flooding, you know, they're really above all the jetties you can see, I tend to avoid the water for a day or two. And that's simply because there's a lot of stuff going into the lake at that point. You know, there might be septic tanks which are overflowing. All the stuff in the farmer's fields come in the lake. After day two, that calms down. So next, when in the Lake District, where are you going to stay? Now, you cannot wild camp around the lakes. As tempting as it is, you can't wild camp around the low-lying lakes. There are plenty of great campsites, most of which are on the shores of the lake, so really ease of access. So look out for one of those campsites. Of course, there's plenty of amazing hotels and B&Bs and youth hostels that you can stay in around the lakes. But don't think that you're the exception and it'll be fine if you wild camp next to the lake, because it encourages other people, and a lot of people, that comes with a lot of rubbish. So just be aware of that. When I've mentioned rubbish, I'm sure you're all very responsible and that you take everything out with you. I'll go a step further. I'll obviously take any rubbish out with me, but I don't leave it in the bins around the lake because they can quite quickly get overflowing when it's a busy day. So I make sure I take all my rubbish out with me. If you want to find out more about swimming in the lakes, there's some great guidebooks that you can find. So for example, Susanna has produced this wonderful wild swimming guidebook for the Lake District. There's also Wild Swims by Kate Rue, and Daniel Stewart has also a wild swim book. So there's lots of these great books that you can pick up and find out more about where you can swim around the lakes and some good access points and some top tips. I also recommend that you find a local provider. I would say this because I myself am a local provider, but there are some local businesses with swimmers who swim in the Lake District year round. And so if you hunt one of us out, there's several of us now based Windermere, Derwentwater, I myself, Ullswater Swim Place, based here, and we have guided swims, introduction swims, just to get you used to swimming in the water. So find a local operator, that's what I recommend. Otherwise, the lakes is an incredible place to swim, and just be responsible, as I've said. During the day, on a busy weekend, don't go swimming across the lake when there's lots of other boats on the water. Stick to the shoreline. If you are going to swim down the length of lake, then you should have something called an alpha flag on a boat beside you. And the alpha flag actually warns people that there's a swimmer in the water if you're doing the length of lake. But again, there's plenty of local providers who'll provide support for you and make sure that everyone is aware that you're swimming down the length of lake. If you want to go on one of the high tarns, there's been a massive increase in the mountain rescue being called out for swimmers. I think what people forget is, as if they're going up into the hills, you have to pack as if you are going for a mountain walk. You know, you don't go walking up in your flip-flops and dry robe. If you're heading off up into the hills, you want to go with good walking shoes on, your map, your compass, first aid kit, so that if you do get into trouble around one of the tops, if you're walking in somewhere, you can get yourself out of trouble. You don't have to call on mountain rescue or anything like that. So again, it's about common sense, and if you're going up into the hills to find one of these tarns or lakes, then just make sure that you're well prepared. And I mentioned before with the high water, if the water is high, then a lot of the waterfalls, a lot of the rivers do obviously become dangerous. So you've got to make sure that you're looking at the conditions and the weather to know if you should swim. Again, it's about that visual risk assessment. That's what you need to have yourself. Now, when it comes to the different bodies of water, as I said, over 200 tarns, 16 large bodies of water. There's something called the Hitches. And if you go onto the Lake District National Park website, you'll find out more information. What that basically is there's different invasive species of both plants and wildlife. Now, if you're coming into the Lake District from another area, then make sure before you come that all your gear, wetsuits, swim togs, it's all been washed and thoroughly dried before you arrive in the Lake District. But even within the Lake District, there's some invasive species in different bodies of water and not in others. And as wild swimmers are now doing more and more tarns, and there's more people doing it, then there is a risk of these different species being spread around the lakes. So please, in between swims, wash your kit well and make sure it's dry and nice and clean before you go into another body of water. I mean, that applies for kayakers and different boats and everything, but just make sure that you're looking out for that. So ditch the hitches. So thank you very much for watching this. If you have any questions, then please leave a comment below on my YouTube channel. Otherwise, you can contact me at Ullswater Swim Place. Okay, thanks very much. Check out my other videos. I've literally got hundreds of videos on open water swimming on this YouTube channel. So please like and subscribe down below.